Well, hey guys, it's Darwin, and today we're gonna do a good old-fashioned Q&A. Why? Because why not? I still love doing these after all these years and after all of the Q&As that I've done in the past. I love picking your brain so you can pick my brain and we can learn from each other. I'm still a big believer in the whole community aspect of YouTube and what it can be. And there's one particular question that I want to touch on today and really deep dive that I got from you guys, and that is what I actually hate about through hiking. After all these years, what it is that I actually hate. But before we get to that question, I got a bunch of good questions here on YouTube, over on the community tab, and on my Instagram. So let's go ahead and dive right into it and start answering some. So what is your best tip for taking care of your feet on trail? Great question, and this is something I've actually spent a lot of time over the years, I guess, trying to perfect or get better about. I think one of the biggest things that happens to people's feet when they are out on a through hike or even a backpacking trip or a day hike is you get blisters, right? And then blisters lead to you kind of stepping wrong and having a weird cadence or a stride, and then you start getting injuries. You start using your muscles different, you start hurting your knees, and I think it really comes down to keeping your feet clean. Something that I have been really vigilant about over the last couple years is every night when I get to camp, I'll usually take my buff or something else, I'll get it wet and I'll actually clean my feet off. By keeping all that dirt and dust and everything that gets on your feet throughout the day, I think that really helps go a long way with your feet. It helps with blisters, and then because you're not getting blisters and your feet aren't hurting as much, then that also helps with starting to step weird and eventually injure yourself. So that is the best advice I have for good foot care on the trail. And again, I have to remind myself of that all the time. I thought this one was funny. Why do all the outdoor brands show people in the door of their tent with a stove and food and fresh cup of coffee? And in the same breath, they say don't cook where you sleep. That's kind of a good question. I would never cook dinner or eat like lunch in my tent, but I do drink coffee every single morning in my tent and eat breakfast. It's kind of a ritual for me. I love waking up in the morning. I love opening the door to my tent, looking out at everything, having my coffee, and eating my breakfast. So I guess that's why outdoor brands do. I just thought it was a funny question, but yeah, that's, I guess, something that I do as well. Before we jump into the next question, I wanted to let you guys know that this good old-fashioned Q&A is brought to you by the good folks over at Onyx Backcountry. I have spent a lot of time in the backcountry over the years, obviously. And I've used a lot of different hiking apps, but over the last year of really getting into, I don't know, we'll call it more hardcore outdoor adventuring like mountaineering and winter backpacking, planning my own routes and trying to do some stuff that's just a bit different. Onyx Backcountry, the app, has really helped me step up my game as far as being safe and feeling confident when I'm out in the backcountry. Some of the features that it has are some of the best of any app that I've ever used, like the weather feature. So before I even get out on the trail, I can actually prepare. I can see, is it gonna be rainy? Is it gonna be cold? Is it gonna be hot? And then I can prepare all of my gear for the conditions I'm gonna be in. It also has an amazing public and private land layer. So I'm making sure that I'm not somewhere that I shouldn't be and I'm not camping on somebody's private land. And then one of the newest features and one of the things that Onyx has recently added to it is a multi-sport layer. I can toggle back and forth between hiking, climbing, mountain biking. It's all under one roof, which I absolutely love. Right now, if you guys are interested, you can get 20% off the Onyx Backcountry app by using my link down below. It's a special link that will get you 20% off, and you can also get a free trial before you decide if you wanna sign up. I cannot thank Onyx enough for supporting the channel and allowing me to get out on so many of my adventures lately, and for sponsoring this video. On the TMB, or Tour de Mont Blanc, do you go hut to hut or tent? Camping is mostly forbidden, I think. Yeah, so whenever you are doing the Tour de Mont Blanc, you are going from what they call a refuge to a refuge. So very similar to a hostel, or in Nepal, it would be similar to a tea house. So every day you're ending at kind of this small little building. You get a bunk for the night, you can take a shower, and then in that night you get dinner, and then in the morning they give you breakfast, and sometimes they even give you a lunch on your way out. And that's just kind of how the tour works. That's actually how a lot of overseas trekking has been for me. So whether I was down in Ecuador doing some hiking through the Andes, whether I'm in Nepal hiking through the Himalayas, or over in Europe, hiking through the Alps, it's kind of the same thing. There's not a whole lot of wild camping, backpacking in other countries. That's kind of how most of them are set up. But yes, the Tour de Mont Blanc is from hut to hut. How do you protect your camera gear on hikes, especially ones with lots of rain and dust? Yeah, I always leave this out in my videos. I recently did a how I pack my pack video, and I showed all of my stuff and where I put it in my pack, and I showed that I have my camera up here on my shoulder strap, but I didn't talk about what I actually do with my camera when it starts raining. I always leave that out of videos for some reason. If it starts raining, if the weather starts getting bad, I actually just carry a gallon Ziploc bag. I'll take my camera off, I'll throw it in the gallon Ziploc bag, and then I'll put it in my pack. That's pretty much it. I have a bag, a separate bag to keep my camera dry, and if it's really bad, I'll just put it in there. Every once in a while, I'll leave it still hanging here, and I'll kind of put the gallon Ziploc bag over it to kind of act like a little rain jacket for my camera. But yeah, I just usually throw it in my pack. I don't know why I always leave that out of videos. I should really start remembering that. Will you be making a documentary about the Everest Base Camp trek like the Arizona Trail? So I actually went over 2 months ago to shoot a short film, so a documentary about my climb of Island Peak and about the entire Khumbu Valley, which is what leads up to Mount Everest. So it's not really about my trek to Everest Base Camp, as it's more about the culture, the valley, some of the problems that they're having on some of the mountains like Everest and some of the surrounding mountains, and then obviously my climb. So it'll be a bit different than what I did for the Arizona Trail with Through the Great Southwest, but it is a documentary that is very much focused around a main subject being outdoor and adventure. Now that you know the negative effects that through hiking has on your body, mind, and spirit, what advice would you offer to others not to go overboard on through hiking? I recently did a video called like my top 5 regrets of the last 9 years of backpacking and through hiking. And in that, I talked about a couple of them. One, making sure that I'm taking care of myself physically and preparing, and so I don't get injuries and stuff like that. But one of the biggest ones is taking care of myself mentally. And I think what happens to a lot of through hikers, and what happens to me, is you get so addicted to through hiking and the idea of being out there and this kind of vagabond lifestyle and nonstop adventure that you overdo it. And you start kind of neglecting everything else in your life, all the other things that you could be doing, and you completely wrap your identity into, I am a through hiker and I through hike. And I think that it's dangerous because it leads to burnout. That's what I did, and that's what happened to me. I got totally burnt out on through hiking and being outdoors, and then obviously with the YouTube channel, making content about through hiking. So it's all I was talking about, it's all I was doing, and that led to burnout. So my biggest piece of advice for anyone getting into through hiking is do it and love it, but then take a step back from it. Try to do some other stuff. Get out and do some mountain biking, get out and do some climbing. Just go do some world travel, and don't live out of a backpack and sleep in a tent every night. Do something different, so then you can learn to appreciate it more when you get an opportunity to go do another hike. Yeah, definitely my biggest piece of advice. Just take it a little easier. Don't be such a serial through hiker and be so addicted to it and wrap your entire identity into it. Do you have any tips for a new outdoor niche YouTuber? Thanks for all the great videos. Thanks for saying that. My biggest advice for anybody starting on this platform, especially in the outdoor space, and I know that everything else is gonna tell you the complete opposite of this, do what you believe in and love what you're doing. Be authentic and be real. Practice what you preach. If you're talking about backpacking and hiking gear, go out and actually use it. Actually put it to the test. Don't just get something, take it out in your backyard and talk about it. Be real, be authentic. There is so much fakeness on YouTube these days. There's so much fakeness where everyone's just trying to get into the algorithm and make money. And I know that's how it works. Trust me, I know. I've been doing it for 9 years. But I think staying true to yourself and doing something like a Q&A when you know that you could have made a gear video where you're talking about the top 5 best sleeping pads, and that would have done so much more so much better on YouTube. The reason I love doing these Q&As is because I love the community aspect of YouTube. It's why I got into it. I love connecting with people and sharing information and learning from each other. So be true to it. Be real, be authentic, and at least in my experience, when I started 9 years ago, that's what took off for me. It was because I was just being me and I was doing what I loved to do. All right, and the last question is the one that actually sparked, I guess, the title of this video. And they didn't say hate, but to me, that's what I think of. What don't you like about long distance hikes, if anything? So for me, it's what do I hate about thru hikes? Obviously, I love the adventure. I love the challenge. I love putting myself through something like that. What I hate is the mundaneness that comes from long distance hiking. I've talked about this so many times over the last 9 years here on the channel, and it's really hard to explain it to people that have never experienced it. But whenever you go for a backpacking trip, and it's amazing, right? You love doing it, and you get out there and you go on your backpacking trip, and when you get back, you can't wait to do it again. Well, that's probably because you spent 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5 days out on the trail. But when you're doing a thru hike, you're just putting in tons of miles every day. You're trying to get to that goal of finishing the trail. And there becomes this mundaneness. Same as working a 9-to-5 job. Like when you first start a job, it's fun, you love the job, you love the people you work with. But after a handful of months, the mundane starts to set in. And it's not as exciting anymore. And the people that you work with, you start finding things about them that aggravate you. It's the same with long distance hiking. It's the same with thru hiking. And I know there's so many people out there that are like, but I love backpacking. I would love to do that all the time. But what I can tell you from my 14,000 miles of experience and 9 years of long distance hiking is that is 100% true. If you know anybody that's done a bunch of thru hikes, ask them. It becomes mundane. And once you get towards the end, you just want to get off the trail. And you don't want to have anything to do with it ever again. And then you sit around for a little bit, the FOMO starts to sit in, you miss it, and then you go do another one, and then you go through the same process. But that's the thing that I hate the most about long distance hiking. It's why I've taken such a big step back from it, because I got burnt out on that aspect of it. I got burnt out on getting out onto the trail and loving it for the first month or 2 months. And then that went away. And then it becomes the slog of like, I got to finish this trail. I got to finish what I started. And then you're kind of pushing yourself mentally and physically every single day.
Just tired. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's after leaving West Yellowstone and kind of doing this big stretch, trying to put in big miles, or just the last month catching up to me. Yeah, that's all I got. Just tired.
I hate that. I hate that you just go through that. I mean, there's not a thru hike that I've done in 9 years where I haven't went through that process. So yeah, that's definitely what I hate the most. I wish that wasn't it. And that is why I'm now getting into doing so many of these smaller trips, smaller backpacking trips, bikepacking trips, world travel, where I'm going out for maybe a week or 2 weeks, and then I'm able to step away from it, come back home and really savor it, and really enjoy what I just experienced instead of having to, get tired of it, I guess. There's other things I hate. I hate being hot. I hate being hungry. I hate being cold. But those are all just things that come with it. Those are things that's what you sign up for. But yeah, that's the thing that I hate the most. I hate that it becomes mundane and you kind of fall out of love with it mid-hike, at least for me. All right, guys, that's it. Tons of great questions. A great question to kind of base the Q&A off of. All of this is just my opinion. These are just my experiences over the last 9 years and 14,000 miles of hiking. Again, what I always say is you got to get out there and you got to kind of discover all of this for yourself and what you're going to like and what works for you and what you love and what you hate about something. And thank you guys so much for all of your great questions. I'm currently over in Europe hiking through the Alps to do the Tour de Mont Blanc and then doing some mountaineering and some climbing, hopefully on the Matterhorn. If I was able to get to it. Weather hadn't been really good right now when I'm shooting this, but I'll have some awesome content to share with you guys when I get back. I hope you're doing well. I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves. I hope you're taking care of each other. I love you. And as always, thanks for watching.